Hey everyone, it is late at night and I am Norman. Tonight we're going to be looking at some more watch news. And actually what I have here is a list of 4 amazing watches that we're going to be taking a look at, and I'll share my opinion of them. So let us begin. The first watch we're looking at comes to us from Worn & Wound, and this is a really interesting Hamilton watch. This particular watch is a Hamilton Jazzmaster Two-Face, and at first glance it looks like a chronograph watch that's just super thick. There are 3 subdials at the 12 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and 6 o'clock. And a really interesting looking, almost diesel style metal plate at the 3 o'clock that houses the date. This is actually a day date complication there. However, this watch has a trick up its sleeve. So the inside portion of this case is actually on an axis from 9 to 3, so you can rotate this watch around and wear it with the back sticking out. And the interesting thing is, the back of this watch not only has the movement visible, but there's a hand there. So when you're using the chronograph, this is the chronograph seconds hand. So strange. So what do I think of this watch? First off, this watch is pretty big at 44 millimeters. And this watch is really thick. As you can see in the pictures with it halfway rotated, yeah, this is a brick. In fact, this watch is over 17 millimeters thick. That is just crazy. I feel like the front dial isn't too bad. That plate in there is kind of weird. Like I mentioned, it's a little diesel-ish. Yeah. The hands are great. I love me some Dauphine hands. The overall colorway looks really nice. The case looks great. I just don't really understand the complication. I mean, I guess it's kind of cool that you could wear your watch with the display case back on the top there. I mean, if you really like looking at the movement that's in your watch, that's pretty cool. I don't understand the chronograph hand. So if you're going to be using your chronograph, you would have to take your watch off, flip it around, put it back on. That way you get basically a seconds hand. That is so weird. I mean, it's great to see Hamilton thinking outside the box and kind of coming up with a new, clever design, but yeah, I feel like the thickness is way overboard, and 44 millimeters is just gigantic. And I mean, 17 millimeters, that's thicker than the first generation Pelagos. Yeah, no. And these watches retail for about $3,000. I think I'm gonna have to pass. The next watch on my list comes to us from Monochrome Watches. And this is a James Lamb handmade watch. The entire watch face is a subdial that's offset toward the 3 to 4 o'clock hour position, and the rest of the space is blue enamel. The subdial is really classy and dressy, the handset looks nice on it. And I believe the subdial is enamel also, but done in a white enamel. The overall effect of this watch is it looks like the subdial is kind of floating in water. What do I think of this watch? Number 1, it is brilliant looking. And 2, this is a handmade watch, which is always super impressive. But James Lamb takes it even further. He attempts to avoid using modern machinery in building his watches. So these are extra handmade. We can get a glimpse at some of the behind the scenes with some of these shots that were featured in the article. I am always super impressed by people who hand make watches. That is so cool. It would be so great to be sitting in a small workshop and to be able to produce super precise, tiny little components and put them all together and end up with a watch as the finished product. That would be so absolutely amazing. And what's even more amazing about these watches, they retail for under $10,000 for a completely handmade watch. That is pretty wild. And I believe the enameling is the only thing that wasn't done in-house. That was actually sent out to a different company to do, which makes sense. Enameling is pretty crazy. Although so is making an entire watch by hand, so yeah. I think these watches are brilliant and they look absolutely amazing. The next watch on my list comes to us from Beyond the Dial, and this is a Yema GMT. It features an AM/PM style bezel, so the top half is black, the bottom half is white. The dial is nice, minimal diver style with dot indices, very mill-sub style. The hands are nice and basic. The minutes hand has a triangle pointer at the end of it, and the hour hand is a simple pencil hand. The GMT hand also has a triangle at the end of it, and it has a nice pop of red with lume in the middle of it. What do I think of this watch? I am actually really intrigued by Yema. I love me the Superman. I like the weird bezel lock that they have, even though it may not be very practical. I don't know, I haven't been able to see one in person. It would be cool to get a Yema in the flesh and really experience it and see what it's like. Just in looking at pictures these past couple years or so, I like them. They look really cool. I love the mil-spec style, so this watch is right up my alley. These come in at 39mm and they have an amazing looking box crystal on them. So cool. And the aesthetic of that bezel just looks great. And the idea of taking their design that's somewhat similar to their Superman and making a GMT, that's pretty cool. I would really like to see one in person. That would be cool. Maybe someday. The bracelet looks great on these, and it's so cool to see them come in just under 40mm. So they're nice and understated, really great. Another crazy thing about these watches is the water resistance is 500 meters, which is good because I always go that deep. I think I'm a sucker for French watches. These watches retail for about $1,200 to $1,400 depending on the strap or bracelet option that you choose. Yeah, the Yema Superman is pretty great. The last watch I have on my list also comes from Monochrome watches, and this is the Varon Chiri. I think that's how you pronounce that. These watches have a very Grand Seiko kind of look to them. They have Dauphine hands and nice basic dressy batten markers on them, applied. The hands are really slender Dauphine style hands. The case is understated and has a nice graceful flow to it. And an interesting aspect of these watches is the element that circles around the very edge of the dial. That interesting looking pattern there. And this is a Korean brand. I'm not sure I'm aware of very many Korean watch brands. Well, now we know about one. And apparently these watches were designed taking into account feedback of hundreds of watch enthusiasts. And they're crowdfunded watches too. So what do I think of these watches? I do love the aesthetic of Grand Seiko, so I like the look of these watches as well. Those hands are great, I love how thin they are, and yet they're Dauphine. The applied markers look great. These are really nice looking everyday yet a little bit dressy watches. They feature 100 meters of water resistance, and the proportions are really amazing on these watches too. The case is 38.5mm in size, and it's a really nice 9.7mm in height. I mean, you really can't mess with those proportions for a watch like this. A dressy, sporty watch, I feel like that size is just great. The crowdfunding price for these is about $400, and the retail price is going to be just under $600. It'll be interesting to watch this brand in the future and see what other things they come up with. These watches are pretty great, and the price isn't too bad either. Alright, so there you have it, 4 interesting watches that I wasn't aware of until right now. Thanks for watching.